After Alex is captured, we make our way through a large, abandoned factory. This place is enormous, and outside of the Citadel is really one of my favorite interior spaces in the game. For anyone else, it would simply be a flight of stairs leading up to the top floor exit, but for Gordon, no, he has to ride rickety lifts, scale narrow, slippery girders, and climb up service ladders to make his way to the top, all the while being shot at by soldiers and snowmen. We finally catch up with Barney, who is pinned down by snipers on the top floor of a ruined building. Now would have been the perfect opportunity for Gordon to make use of the sniper rifle himself, but does he get one? Frustratingly, no. He has that crossbow that shoots the red-hot rebar, but that is useless against these snipers. Listen to me, Valve. Denying Half-Life 2 players the use of this weapon is like teasing a small child with a lollipop. A big, delicious lollipop with a blue laser. Now, if we do not get to use this rifle by Episode 2, I swear to God I will complain about it vehemently in my next commentary. Barney explains to us that there's a building up ahead which he refers to as the Nexus Building. This building is a major garrison for Combine forces, and not only do the generators inside the building control a gate which allows us access to the Citadel, but the building itself houses a suppression device which is a sort of powerful, focused energy weapon that acts like artillery. It's sort of a rough fight inside of the building to disable the generators, which is some indication that the Combine does in fact take this place rather seriously. There is some very hard fighting, and the Resistance members drop like flies, but Barney loses neither his sense of humor nor his enthusiasm for the task at hand. In fact, at the very end of the battle, as Barney leads you to the gate that allows you access to the building's roof, he all but taunts you as you attempt to gather up supplies and recharge your health and HEV suit. Roof access is this way, Gordon. The roof is this way, Gordon. Come on, Gordon! Come on, Barney, give me a moment to catch my breath for pity's sake. I just watched 30 citizens get their faces shot off. After we disable the Nexus Building's generators and open the nearby gate, not only do hordes of Resistance members come through, but so do Combine forces. Up until this point in the game, we have certainly seen a few Striders, but we have not actively engaged them in combat. Like many of the Combine's forces, Striders seem to be former organic extraterrestrial organisms that have had their home world colonized by the Combine, and themselves transformed by heavy cybernetic modification into weapons for the Combine's military machine. Striders function as mobile armor for the Combine, and these insect-like creatures are without a doubt the deadliest weapon in their arsenal. The intricate modeling and animation for the Striders is really magnificent, and these are all around a unique and brilliant creature. Their sheer size is fearsome enough by itself, not even taking into account their heavy gunfire or concentrated energy blast. You may notice that it takes them less than a minute to kill nearly every RPG-equipped Resistance member in front of the Nexus Building. As yet, I've deliberately said nothing about the music of Half-Life 2, but I was waiting until this very moment, this last stage of the Follow Freeman chapter, in order to talk about it. I'm fond of the entire Half-Life 2 soundtrack, as I'm fond of electronic music in general. I know much of the soundtrack was carried over from the original Half-Life, but much of the content is new, including the track that occurs here, a song that I call Head for the Horse. I don't recall what the actual title of this track is. This song, to me, is really the perfect accompaniment for the intense action of this final climactic battle in the ruined building near the equestrian statue in question. I like this song so much that I broke into the Half-Life 2 content GCF file and acquired the track to place on my MP3 player. I listen to the song sometimes when I'm running. You'd be surprised how far and how fast you'll run if your instincts tell you there's a Strider right behind you. The fighting for this building is so furious that I really consider this sequence to be the climax of the game, even more so than the later events in the Citadel, which almost seem like an afterthought in comparison. In fact, maybe I'll just shut up for a change, let the action speak for itself. In the aftermath of the battle, we see Dog come tearing into the square, throwing minivans about and destroying the very horse monument we worked so hard to reach. Barney arrives right on schedule, and while the Resistance members help clean up the few remaining Combine troops, he explains to us that he discovered Dog searching for Alex. Now, as far as I know, Dog flew away on a dropship and had no idea that Alex was even captured by the Combine. He seems to know that Alex is now located in the Citadel, and whether this is from robotic telepathy or a keen sense of electronic smell, I do not know, but Dog seems pretty certain nonetheless. Now that we've reached the last wall before entering the Citadel, the usually proactive Barney is stumped as to how to enter, but luckily Dog once again proves his worth and robotic strength and is able to lift up a section of the gate. Since no one else, including Barney, volunteers to enter the eerie dark tunnel or even offers to assist us, we go in ourselves. With a quick goodbye and a final but cleverly drowned-out obscenity from Barney regarding Dr. Breen, Dog lets the gate fall closed over our head, slamming us shut inside a space that resembles nothing so much as a grave. Phew, things are looking bad. We've seen the Citadel off and on throughout the game, but always from a distance. Even then the massive scale of the structure was apparent. Its upper portion was so high that it was often obscured in clouds. However, this first view of the Citadel up close is absolutely staggering. The sheer magnitude of this monstrosity never ceases to impress me. The structure is utterly alien. No human could have created this thing, and I'm sure this was exactly the impression that was being sought. It looks to me rather like it fell from the sky and crashed into the earth. Another thing that always catches my interest are the enormous thumpers pounding the earth at the base of the Citadel, thumpers which are probably responsible for keeping the antlines completely out of City 17. In my Episode 1 commentary, I spoke briefly about Combine architecture, so please forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I feel it's significant enough to warrant another mention. I think it is difficult for us as humans to conceive of anything, be it architecture or extraterrestrials themselves, that is truly alien in nature. When we try to come up with something that is alien, it is inevitable that we give it a human touch. The tendency when coming up with fictional extraterrestrials is to make them basically humanoid. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes set in a head at the top of the body. I think in designing the Half-Life series, a very fair job was done in overcoming these alien stereotypes. Very few of the creatures are humanoid, from the head crabs to the striders, and the architecture, particularly in the Citadel, seems to me as if it were designed only to accommodate humanoids as an afterthought. I'm certain that humans are still new to the Combine, and they are still getting used to adapting their technology to accommodate the new human recruits on their Earth garrison. The interior design of the Citadel is completely utilitarian. There is nothing soft or pleasant about it. All of the edges and lines are hard and sharp. Nothing is meant to be pleasing or pleasurable. It is stark, cold, and unfeeling. While seemingly strong, the construction seems hasty and abrupt. The bluish metal material making up the vast bulk of the structures is rough and unfinished. There are pipes and wires exposed throughout the Citadel, with no thought given to concealing them. All of this coldness is a very direct metaphor for the rule and behavior of the Combine itself. Now, transport throughout the Citadel seems to consist primarily of extremely uncomfortable-looking pods on a rail-like conveyance. Despite its lack of comfort, our own pod ride gives us ample opportunity to see the horrid goings-on inside the Citadel. For the first time we see stalkers working as slaves, repairing or maintaining gunships, or the Citadel itself. We don't know anything about these creatures yet, except for one instance when a Resistance member says that they'll never make a stalker out of me. At the end of our pod ride, we enter a room where an energy field confiscates and then vaporizes our arsenal. Great, now what? But wait a minute, something's happening to the gravity gun. It's turning blue. Now what in blazes could this mean? Well, it's seemingly the only weapon we have, so I guess there's nothing to do but give it a try. Holy bloody hell. Now, if you're watching this, you already know everything there is to know about the blue gravity gun. In fact, you're probably one of those people who knows how to cheat and get the blue gravity gun at the beginning of the game. I cannot possibly elaborate upon the merits of this device without repeating myself, so I will simply leave it at this. Thank you, Valve, for providing me with a weapon that not only kills my enemies, but lets me defile their corpses. Thank you. One of my favorite parts on our journey to Dr. Breen is this room, where there's this thing. I don't quite know what to call this thing. It's sort of an energy field where the laws of gravity do not quite apply. I call this thing the aquarium, and it's really delightful. What you do here is to use the gravity gun to pick up the dead bodies of Combine soldiers. You then carefully place them inside the watery-looking part of the aquarium. Now, their bodies float beautifully and slowly as if they were indeed suspended in water. If they hit that energy beam in the middle, they're vaporized, but there's no shortage of soldiers to refill the aquarium. It's like a Zen garden, or maybe trimming a bonsai tree. That is to say, it's very meditative. If I've had a stressful day, I simply load up Half-Life 2, go to the aquarium, set God Motor on, light some candles and some incense, and pose dead Combine soldiers in the energy field till I feel better. You should give it a try, seriously. We repeatedly see Dr. Breen broadcasting directly to us in what seems to be a desperate attempt to halt Gordon from proceeding any further. His tone becomes increasingly condescending and remonstrative, as if he were scolding a wayward child. It's difficult to tell who exactly Breen is trying to convince, himself or Gordon. He has divulged more than he intended in his broadcast throughout the game, and even before I knew the full extent of Breen's position with the Combine, he always sounded to me like a man operating on borrowed time. As we ascend further into the Citadel, we end up going on a second pod ride. For me, there are 2 points of interest on this second journey. The first is when we travel through a rather open area full of platforms and walkways. We see some interesting creatures that have not been seen elsewhere in the game. I do not know what these beings were called, and I have heard rumor that they were originally intended to have a larger role in the game but were cut from the final release. The second point of interest is when our pod begins to ascend rapidly straight up through a narrow passageway. For the first time we begin to realize how enormously tall the Citadel really is. At one point we pass by some windows which allow us to look down upon the sun setting over City 17, and frankly it looks as if we're looking down out of an airplane. Really, we must be a mile above the ground. Now, I'm not fond of heights in real life, and this part of the game always startles me.